The new Dragon's Dogma animated series from Netflix is sadly not the second coming of Castlevania I was hoping for. Let me just say up front that I am not a fan of the CG 3D cel shaded sort of animation used in Dragon's Dogma and in many other series similar to it. It really didn't bother me in Transformers, War for Cybertron, Siege, and I said as much in my review, but that's primarily because that sort of 3D CG cel shaded animation style, that's a mouthful, fits the aesthetic of Transformers more because, well, they're robots. The reason I dislike this sort of animation is because in motion, particularly when used with human beings, with people, they tend to look more like action figures. Toys running around, like, characters from Toy Story or something, rather than actual human beings. That sort of weird animation in motion really bothers me and takes me out of the experience much of the time. I will say though that in Dragon's Dogma, the action figure effect is much lessened and that this animation style has vastly improved over previous iterations that I have seen, in that this is the series that uses this particular animation style that has come close to looking like traditional 2D animation that I have seen. I don't know, I'm just a huge fan of traditional 2D style animation, which was used in Netflix's Castlevania and is one reason I love that series so much. And the closer that you will get to that animation style, the more that I will appreciate it. The action figure syndrome still does exist though, particularly when the characters are running. There is this weird movement with their shoulders and elbows that really makes them look like action figures, and yeah, it still bothers me, but again, everything about the animation style is much improved over previous iterations, and it thankfully didn't bother me as much this time around. Because of the much improved animation in this style, the action looks particularly good and in my opinion is very well choreographed much of the time. This is definitely an R-rated series, and so the action is particularly brutal and intense, and I thought it was well executed overall. Now, going to the characters in the story is about Ethan, whose village was one day attacked by a dragon, and he becomes the sole survivor. Everyone in the village is wiped out. All the soldiers, all the villagers, his wife, and his unborn child. And as you can tell, that's a particular terrible tale for our hero. And on top of that, the dragon leaves him as a survivor for some reason, and instead of finishing him off quite easily, like the other villagers, like the other humans that were inhabiting this area, he instead leaves him alive, but takes his heart and challenges Ethan to come find him and reclaim his heart. So, after recovering, Ethan does so, and he is joined by another character, a pawn, named Hannah, who seems to be not exactly a human, and exists only to assist and protect the Arisen. The Arisen are those specially chosen people that survive a dragon's attack and instead have their hearts taken, which is exactly what has happened to Ethan. Ethan, in particular, is a character I like because I like his old school heroism. Yes, he is filled with rage and his only focus in life now is to get revenge on the dragon that has taken literally everything from him, finding and killing this dragon. But along the way and during his journey, he encounters many people and always stops to help them out of the goodness of his heart, which I like very much. I'm really into superheroes and old school heroism and things like that. I particularly connected to him and I liked him overall in the end. Now, that's the base for your story in Dragon's Dogma, but the meat of the story is his journey along the way to his goal, because he encounters, again, like I mentioned, he encounters many people who have been attacked by various other monsters, including goblins, griffins, hydras, and so on. The monsters here I particularly loved, and they were the highlight of the series for me. Every episode pretty much highlighted a different monster, and all of them were very well designed and very well crafted in my opinion, and I found all of them to be very unique and very entertaining. Each episode literally was a monster of the day episode, and I loved every monster. The story surrounding these monsters, interestingly enough, all revolve around the 7 deadly sins. So there are 7 half-hour episodes total that compose this series, and each episode is focused on one of the 7 deadly sins, which I found very interesting. So there's episodes focused on, and these are not in any order, these are just off the top of my head. There are episodes that focus on wrath, sloth, greed, pride, lust, and so on. And Ethan, who is sort of innocent in a way, because he has just lived in this simple fishing village for literally his entire life, is traveling the countryside for the first time and meeting all sorts of people from all walks of life, and is learning about all of the different sins of man on his way to his ultimate goal. Which, again, I found rather interesting and was one of the reasons I was very engaged in the story. But unfortunately, it all kind of falls apart in the ending. The episodes did a very good job of hyping you up to Ethan finally reaching the dragon and getting his revenge and all of that. And I just found the last episode to be sort of a bore. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a fairly exciting rematch against the dragon and all of that, but, spoilers, sorry. The majority of the last episode was primarily a philosophical debate of sorts, and I get it, but it was mostly pandering because essentially the last episode is set up to not just give a conclusion, to outright explain to the audience the conclusion of the story that it has built up to, instead of showing it like, you know, the visual medium that animation is. The last episode has to pretty much pause and talk directly to the audience and explain why humans are bad because they are capable of all these sorts of sins, and why don't you realize this, and blah 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 blah, which I found unnecessary because if you paid attention to the episodes at all, you would have gotten that anyway, right? All of the episodes focused on all of the possible sins of man. So if you didn't understand that man is capable of sin, and that needed explaining to you in long form philosophical debate style, then I don't know. So again, I just found the direction that the last episode went to be completely unnecessary and just sort of killed the ending for me. So because of that, I have to give Dragon's Dogma a 6 out of 10. It was okay. I gave it an honest shot despite the fact that I am not a fan at all of this animation style. I knew of the Capcom video game but never played it, so I went in cold and excited as to what I might expect from the series. And I think one of the things that killed this for me was I put it on way too high of a pedestal, because after I saw the first trailer, it really reminded me of Castlevania in certain regards, but unfortunately, like I mentioned, it didn't really deliver in the end. But I want to know what you guys thought. Did you guys see the Dragon's Dogma anime series on Netflix? If so, what did you think about it? Did you love it way more than I do? Or, you know, did you hate it? Leave me a message down in the comments and we can talk about it. And this has been Asian Action Actor. If you like my review of the Dragon's Dogma anime series on Netflix, please click like down below and subscribe to see more of my awesome content. And while you're here, you might want to see the other movie and series reviews that I have already done on my channel.